Welcome back to Pokemon episode summaries. Today, I'll be doing episode 420. Haha, the Saffron Con. The episode begins with Ash and the gang finally reaching Saffron City after all this time for May's first contest in Kanto. May went just outside the contest hall as soon as they arrived in Saffron and stood before a poster with the rest of the gang that had a Rapidash and a Dugong on it. May then decided to send out her 3 Pokemon, Combuskin, Squirtle, and Munchlax, to see this beautiful poster to inform them that they would be participating in a contest soon. May especially wanted to have Munchlax and Squirtle see this poster, because they probably didn't even know what the fuck Pokemon contests even were, because they've never participated in one. So, May instantly started her exposition dump, explaining to her 3 Pokemon about the Kanto contest, referring to the poster, but unfortunately for May, only the contest veteran, Combuskin, was interested, and Squirtle and Munchlax just yawned. May was disappointed, but Brock told her that it made sense as to why Squirtle and Munchlax weren't interested, since they never participated in a contest before. And Max concurred, suggesting that May should use Combuskin in the contest if Munchlax and Squirtle weren't interested, and Brock agreed. May agreed that this was probably for the best as well, and stated confidently that she would win her first Kanto contest ribbon with Combuskin, excited for her first Kanto contest. Ash, hungry, suggested that they have lunch before May's contest, but May stated that there was no point in her having lunch when she could get registered for the contest as soon as goddamn possible, hoping that the faster that she got registered, the faster everyone else would get registered, and therefore the faster the contest would begin. So it would give May more time to get all the ribbons before Drew got all his ribbons and was able to rub it in her face, the fact that he got the ribbons first, just like with the Hoenn contest. Max, however, reminds May that the contest wasn't actually starting until tomorrow, which he had been able to find out by looking on his Pokénav. Despite this, Ash and the gang saw that people were going into the contest hall already, leading May, while holding her baby Squirtle, to ask another coordinator with a Mankey if the contest hall was already open, and the coordinator confirms this. Although it clarifies that the contest still wasn't happening until tomorrow, they were just opening up the hall so that people could register and check out the stage, explaining also that the contest would take place on a huge stage. May questioned why people would need to see the stage early, although the coordinator with the Mankey stated that it was so that coordinators could plan their strategies effectively based on how the stage looked. Like, basically, they could plan the scale of their performances and all that. The coordinator with the Mankey then decided to enter the contest hall, so Ash and the gang decided to as well, and saw what was going on. The stage was still being set up for the contest. Cameras were being set up to display video footage of the contest on TV, people were setting up different props on the stage, and a guy was explaining to one of the main people involved in the contest preparation the plans for how the stage was going to look when everything was all finished. When Ash and the gang examined the stage and the hall surrounding it, they were amazed at its size. Brock then questioned May on if seeing the actual stage had changed her opinion on who she wanted to use in the contest, and May started to think it over, but was distracted, along with the rest of the gang, when they saw what they believed to be Vivian Meridian, although they were kind of unsure as if it was even her, because she was wearing a different outfit than usual, a blue outfit. Someone running the whole stage setup then told, quote-unquote, Vivian to go into the center of the stage and do a stage check to make sure that everything was working correctly. So Vivian, quote-unquote, obliges and walks into the center of the stage, and the speakers and lighting are tested, and they're totally fine. The people setting up the stage, however, requested that Vivian, quote-unquote, do a whole bunch of other tests as well, since they claimed that the lighting could only be tested once they saw how a Pokemon shined under the light. So, hearing this, Vivian, quote-unquote, decided to send out her Espeon. And just as the people setting up the stage had hoped, the second that Espeon hit the stage floor, the light focused on it, making Espeon shine extremely brightly. May, who was still holding her Squirtle, looked at this, and both of them were amazed, with May commenting that Espeon was beautiful. Next, Vivian, quote-unquote, tells Espeon to use a Swift. Espeon then follows up by using a Psychic on the Swift stars, which freezes the stars in midair, and Espeon continues to use Psychic, dancing the stars around the stage, and creating rings of stars. Then, in order to finish off with a grand move, Vivian, quote-unquote, told Espeon to jump through the Swift rings, and Espeon obliged, gracefully jumping and somersaulting through the rings, and landing on stage, holding its head high, having a perfect landing. Ash and the gang were left immensely impressed at Espeon's skills, especially Squirtle, who excitedly jumped out of May's arms and ran over to the contest stage, specifically right to the center, wanting to show Espeon what it could do, as it unleashed a few bubbles. Espeon just looked at Squirtle, questioning what the fuck it was even doing, although Squirtle was having too much fun spraying bubbles, so it just kept going, immensely happy, even after using bubble for minutes on end. Vivian, quote-unquote, then picks Squirtle up to stop it from using bubble, as May, Max, Brock, and Ash run over to the stage to apologize for Squirtle's behavior, especially May. Vivian, quote-unquote, then tells May to not worry about apologizing, since Squirtle's act was pretty cute, and she quickly handed Squirtle back to May. Although Squirtle starts to cry after being given back to May, implying that it really wanted to go back on stage, and had basically fallen in love with performing, and Vivian, quote-unquote, realized this, telling May that Squirtle probably felt as though it was suited to be on stage, and could probably put on a good performance, if it tried hard enough. May thanked Vivian, quote-unquote, for the advice, and promised that she would have Squirtle perform once it trained enough. Much to Squirtle's excitement, because it wanted to get on stage as soon as possible, addressing Vivian, quote-unquote, as Vivian. Vivian, quote-unquote, looked confused at this, and May repeated the name Vivian and said that she was the announcer at the Hoenn contest, believing that she was obviously talking to Vivian, right? But she then realized that this woman, who she thought was Vivian, didn't recognize her at all and questioned how this could be, leading Vivian, quote-unquote, to reveal that she actually wasn't Vivian, the announcer of the contest in Hoenn that gave away all the ribbons, but she was actually Lillian, the twin sister of Vivian, who acts as the announcer in the contest of the Kanto region. And we then see a little flashback of Vivian. Anyways, since it was still a while to the contest, and the man from earlier was actually wrong about registration being open, this was literally just to watch the stage, not even any registration, Ash and gang decided to relax inside the Pokemon Center and have some cold drinks, while May was debating what Pokemon she should use, now thinking that maybe she shouldn't use Combusken, since upon seeing how excited Squirtle was for contest now, she wanted to give it a shot. However, she kept going back and forth on if she should actually use Squirtle, since it would be its first contest, so it wouldn't be experienced at all. Max reminded May that if she didn't want to use Combusken, Squirtle, or Munchlax, then she could always call upon Skitty and Beautifly from Norman and Caroline anytime she wanted, and Brock agreed, even going as far as to suggest that she should probably do this, but May states that she wanted to tackle Kanto contests with new Pokemon on her team, to give them a chance. Max told May that totally made sense, and Ash and Brock agreed, wishing May luck. Just then, a voice spoke over the Pokemon Center loudspeaker, being Nurse Joy, as she told May, addressing her as patient number 45, that her Pokemon were fully recovered, and informed her that she was bringing her Pokemon out to the main lobby, which revealed that May had actually given her Pokemon to be treated by Nurse Joy off-screen, and she hurriedly went over to the counter, wanting to get her Pokemon, and she wanted to tell Squirtle that she had officially decided to use it in the contest now. As soon as May rushed over, though, already thanking Nurse Joy, she was very shocked to see Harley, not Nurse Joy, or Chansey, being the one to push the Pokemon Center table containing her Pokemon out of the examination room. May questioned why the fuck Harley was at the Pokemon Center, but Harley just acts surprised to see May, but pleasantly surprised, despite their pretty bitter rivalry. And Harley simply smiles at May, while May was still shocked. Also going to register, meanwhile, was Jessie, in a beautiful gown-like costume, and using the pseudonym Jessabella. So, Jessie navigated herself to one of the receptionist desks in the contest hall, and started to talk to the receptionist, showing her her Hoenn contest pass, asking for entrance into the Saffron contest, bragging about how she couldn't possibly be denied entry because of how awesome she did in her previous contests. The receptionist took the pass and looked at it for only 1 second, and apologized to Jessie, admitting that she couldn't enter the Saffron contest using her current pass, leading Jessie to scream angrily, demanding to know why not, since she was the top coordinator, the great and mysterious Jessabella, according to her. But just as the receptionist was about to explain to Jessie why she couldn't fucking enter the contest, Jessie got distracted, hyping herself up as this awesome top coordinator and shit like that, even though she wasn't, and James and Meowth helped out by revealing themselves and showering Jessie with flower petals, claiming that they were Jessie's personal assistants, Meowthison and Jameson respectively. Jessie eventually gets back on track, asking why she couldn't enter the contest, leading the receptionist to reveal that her contest pass was invalid, since it could only be used for Hoenn contests. In Kanto, there was a separate contest pass. The receptionist then shows Jessie this Kanto contest pass, leading Jessie, embarrassed that she didn't know about it, to claim that she did know about a different contest pass being needed for a Kanto contest, and she was just testing the receptionist to make sure that she knew what she was doing, and asked the receptionist for a pass, and the receptionist gave one to her. So, she officially entered the Saffron contest with no difficulty, and she left the hall for now with James and Meowth until the contest would actually begin. Team Rocket then decided to take a break in a forest until the contest started, and while they walked to this forest, Jessie and Wobbuffet cheered at the fact that Jessie could actually compete again, and Jessie stated her confidence that she could win the Saffron contest and eventually become a top coordinator, and therefore they could win a lot of money. But Meowth reminds Jessie that she didn't win a single ribbon in Hoenn. In response, a now angry Jessie kicked Meowth right in the face, therefore leaving a huge-ass bruise mark on him. Jessie then changes the subject by asking James for his help. James agreed, thinking that Jessie probably just wanted him to help her pick out a perfect dress for the contest or some shit, but instead, Jessie revealed that she wanted James to let her use his Cacnea. James asked why. So Jessie said it was because she felt that she could put on a great performance using James's own Pokemon, and she needed a fresh start with a different Pokemon than her Dustox or Viper. James was hesitant to give away his Pokemon, but Meowth agreed with Jessie, saying that perhaps Jessie would be able to bond with Cacnea and win a ribbon, saying that Jessie's plan was crazy enough to work, and he eventually managed to convince James to lend Jessie his Cacnea. So he called Cacnea out, and as usual, Cacnea hugged him, prickling him. And while James fought to get Cacnea off of his face, Jessie became very unamused, realizing that she had her work cut out for her. She would have to deal with Cacnea potentially being disobedient out of its excitement. Although Meowth tried his best to motivate Jessie to continue to use Cacnea, saying that James being prickled by Cacnea was just a sign of a strong bond between the two of them, or at least Cacnea liking James. So if Jessie could have that happen to her as well, it would indicate that Cacnea really liked Jessie too. Meanwhile, back in the Pokemon Center, Ash, Brock, and Max had met up with Harley as well, and May was still continuously asking Harley what the fuck he was doing at the Pokemon Center, leading Harley to explain that he decided to become Nurse Joy's volunteer assistant as thanks after she nursed his Cacturn back to health. adding that the reason why his Cacnea needed to be treated by Nurse Joy was because it had been experiencing a bad injury that he acquired on his way to Saffron City, and also was experiencing a fever too. Shocking, Max made Brock and Ash with the fact that Harley would actually do something so kind as to assist Nurse Joy, although Harley stated that he did in fact treat May's Pokemon for real this time. And also, he said that the reason why he had decided to come early for the contest was because he initially wanted to help set up the stage, but he decided against it once his Cacnea got injured and sick, and he had to get it treated. Harley then decides to divulge some of the rules to the Kanto contest, explaining that Kanto contests were a little bit different than home contests, since coordinators were allowed to switch which Pokemon they used between the first and second rounds, aka the appeals round and the battle round. May was absolutely amazed at the fact that Harley seemingly had had a change of heart, not only healing her Pokemon, but now giving her real advice, and she was about to thank him, but Max stopped her, reminding her that Harley had tricked her twice before in the past, and told her not to believe him this time either. Max gets so worked up that he ends up falling over as Harley pleads May and Max to believe him when he said that he was truly a different person now, and he had worked really hard to make up for the things in his past. Max's doubts persisted as he noted that Harley was smiling quite mischievously, and soon Ash, May, and Brock realized this as well, so Harley changed his tune, suddenly starting to cry. Just then, Nurse Joy, having heard Harley's crying, comes out from one of the ER rooms she was in to see what was going on, and greet Harley. Brock obviously became delighted to see Nurse Joy and went to flirt with her as usual, but before he could, Harley went up to her first, and he grabbed her hands and thanked her once again for healing his Cacturne in time for the contest. Nurse Joy assures Harley that it was her pleasure, and Harley then changes the subject a bit, begging Nurse Joy to confirm everything that Harley had said, being that he worked at the Pokemon Center now, and also the Pokemon contest in Saffron, that you use one Pokemon in the first round and a different Pokemon in the second, and Nurse Joy confirmed that Harley was actually telling the truth. Of course, this left Ash and the gang in shock at the fact that Harley really was telling the truth and had actually helped out in the Pokemon Center. Max was still a bit doubtful, but May, Brock, and Ash, on the other hand, stated that if Nurse Joy believed that Harley was a nice guy, then he had to be. Nurse Joy's Chansey then enters the room, as Nurse Joy asks Harley if Ash and the gang were his friends, and Harley turns to them and smiles, confirming that they were, and he introduces May as a great hoeing coordinator. Hearing this, Nurse Joy assumes that May must have been competing in the contest too, and wishes her luck, saying that a person didn't need to substitute their Pokemon in between rounds if they didn't want to, and also she told May that her Pokemon were in excellent condition and any of them would be good to use in the contest. May thanks Nurse Joy for the advice, as she then calls over all her Pokemon. Although Munchlax doesn't even jump off of the Pokemon Center bed as he was sleeping, but Squirtle and Combusken eagerly do, ready to hear what May wanted to say. And luckily for them, May revealed that the two Pokemon she was going to use in the contest were officially Combusken and Squirtle. And Combusken and Squirtle were sure enough very excited at this, and do little poses on the ground in excitement as well. Harley then notices Combusken and compliments it, saying it looks super strong, and he notices Squirtle as well, saying that it looked pretty cute. May thanked Harley for the compliments, but Max still wasn't convinced that Harley was being entirely genuine, leaving Harley to just laugh Max off and try and ignore him, although he couldn't help but sweat a little bit, implying that he was playing a bit of a trick on May after all. Ash and the gang then say goodbye to Nurse Joy as she takes her exit, needing to go treat some other Pokemon. So Harley turns the topic of conversation back to something different, being registration, asking if May had registered yet. May panicked, realizing that she forgot. But Harley reassured May that everything would be okay, since registration was open until 11 a.m. tomorrow, so she could still register. May panicked once again, though, as she realized that she only had a hoeing contest pass, not a Kanto one, and she knew that there was different passes for each place, according to Max's Pokénav. But Harley assured her that her hoeing pass would work in Kanto, even though we knew from Jessie that this wasn't the case. Harley then suggests that since there was so much time left to register, they should kill some time first by going to have lunch at a table in the Pokemon Center, and Ash and the gang agree, looking for the perfect spot to eat. While Ash and the gang were looking, Harley was walking behind them, and since Ash and the gang couldn't see his face, he took the opportunity to smile maliciously and laugh a little bit, indicating that he had a plan up his sleeve to sabotage May from entering the contest, which was pretty obvious since he told her that you could enter using your hoeing pass when you in fact couldn't. Meanwhile, back with Team Rocket in the forest, Jessie had decided to send out Cacnea in an attempt to bond with it, like James had bonded with it, but when she sent it out, Cacnea was merely just surprised to see Jessie instead of James. Jessie decided to come up with a plan, which was to stare really scarily at Cacnea in an attempt to intimidate it so that it wouldn't hug her. And then once the initial desire to hug had faded, then she could try bonding with it. Anyways, Cacnea was indeed frightened and intimidated by Jessie's evil look, so it is very scared, jumped at James and hugged him, prickling him as usual, knocking him down to the ground. Very happy to actually be hugging its trainer. Meowth, however, solves Cacnea, telling it that it had to hug Jessie instead, so that the two of them could bond and she could win the contest. Cacnea was still hesitant, but it finally decided to actually hug Jessie after Meowth's encouragement and James's begging for Cacnea to get off of him. Cacnea then looked nervously at Jessie as Jessie nervously stepped back, scared for what was about to happen when Cacnea finally hugged her, and her screams could be heard throughout the forest. It was painful as hell. Meanwhile, back at the Pokemon Center, Harley was talking with May about the upcoming contest and all that, and revealed that he ran into Drew and found out that he wouldn't be participating in this contest, leading May to state that she ran into Drew recently as well, when they were both chasing after an Arcanine. As for Max, he couldn't take his eyes off Harley, because he was still very suspicious of him. Just then, Jessie came running into the Pokemon Center screaming, and practically stumbling, with James and Meowth following her, and she had Cacnea tangled in her hair. So it was obvious that Cacnea was causing her immense pain. Obviously, Jessie was looked at by all the people in the Pokemon Center when she fell over from the pain and was causing all this ruckus, including Ash and the gang, and Harley too. Just then, a Chansey came out with a Pokemon Center bed thing and put both Jessie and Cacnea on it and pulled them into the operating room with Nurse Joy. And to Jessie's surprise, Nurse Joy called a helper, Harley. Harley confirms that he would help and runs off after saying goodbye to May. Not even the rest of the gang. James and Meowth didn't end up going inside the waiting room, or inside the operating room with Jessie, so they were still just out in the lobby, and they noticed Ash and the gang and all the other coordinators that would be going to the contest. So Meowth and James came up with a plan. Since all these coordinators would be so focused on going to the contest and preparing, they could try and catch all the coordinators off guard and catch every single Pokemon that they wanted. And doing so would also increase Jessie's chances of winning the contest, since no other coordinators would be able to compete with their Pokemon. Meanwhile, outside the Pokemon Center, Ash suggested that May should start training, and May agreed, sending out her Squirtle. After examining several other trainers' Pokemon outside, such as a Scizor, Espeon, Weedle, Pidgey, Rattata, Sandshrew, Vulpix, Jigglypuff, Oddish, Venonat, Psyduck, Mankey, Poliwag, Bellsprout, Meryl, Hoppip, Jumplup, Aipom, Phanpy, Skitty, Shedinja, Illumise, and Trapinch, Ash suggested that he and May should battle for training, but just as Ash was going to send in Pikachu, and Squirtle was about to make the first attack, two mechanical claws show up out of nowhere, grabbing both Pikachu and Squirtle, and dropping them into a cage that was at the bottom of Team Rocket's Meowth balloon, revealing Meowth and James inside of the balloon, not Jessie. Ash and the gang didn't notice that Jessie was missing at first, and instead just stared at James and Meowth angrily, Ash demanding that they give Squirtle and Pikachu back, as did May, although Meowth just laughed, saying that they would never give the Pokemon back, since they finally had Pikachu after all this time. And without further ado, James and Meowth begin their motto, with Meowth replacing Jessie's parts, while also doing his own part in the motto. Once they had stopped with the motto, Ash and the gang finally realized that Jessie was gone, although they barely paid any attention to this fact. They didn't give a fuck. Ash and the gang, seeing Pikachu and Squirtle sad in the cage, demanded that James and Meowth release them again. Very mad now, but James and Meowth were perhaps even more mad at the fact that Ash and the gang had completely disregarded the new motto that they made up, without Jessie. Ash was fed up with Team Rocket bullshit and just told Pikachu to use Thunderbolt, but he stopped, remembering that May's Squirtle was inside the cage, and the Thunderbolt would hurt it due to it being a water type. James brags that Pikachu not being able to use electric attacks was precisely the reason why he and Meowth had captured Pikachu and Squirtle in one cage, and taunted that there was nothing Ash could do now. Back in the Pokemon Center, in the operating room, Harley and Nurse Joy were debating what they should do. In regards to Jessie's whole situation, where her hair was twisted around Cacnea's body, Nurse Joy suggested that they just completely cut off Jessie's hair, horrifying Jessie, since she loved her hair more than anything. And she tried to protest, but regardless, Harley and Nurse Joy decided to stick with the cutting off idea, and Nurse Joy called for her Scizor to help out with slicing the hair off. When Scizor does this caused Jessie so much shock and pain that she ended up fainting. Harley just stood there flabbergasted, not knowing what to do with a fainted patient, so Nurse Joy just told Harley that everything was alright, and she and Scizor could handle the rest from now on. All Harley had to do was get James and Meowth so that they could offer the knocked out Jessie some moral support. So Harley walks out of the operating room, back out into the lobby, expecting to find Meowth and James. We then see outside the Pokemon Center, though, where Team Rocket, or James and Meowth rather, revealed that the Meowth balloon could extend like tens and tens of claws from it, and they were using all the claws to capture a variety of Pokemon from different coordinators at the contest that I mentioned earlier. After very quickly collecting all of these Pokemon, while their trainers and Ash and the gang just looked on helplessly, James and Meowth were pleased and decided they had collected enough Pokemon and better quit while they were ahead. So they started to fly off in the Meowth balloon, taking all the Pokemon with them. But just then, Harley arrived, having walked out of the Pokemon Center in his search for Meowth and James, and he saw all the Pokemon captured and tried to free them by sending out his Ariados, who he called his King of Cool. Harley then declared to me that he would deal with Team Rocket and told his Ariados to use a spider web, which creates a huge web in the sky, trapping Team Rocket's Meowth balloon, preventing James and Meowth from escaping. Ash and the gang were amazed by the spider web, but Harley suggested that May should actually help him out, since he realized that Ariados using spider web was probably all it could really do against Team Rocket, so May obliged, sending out her Combuskin, knowing that she had the perfect chance to attack with Team Rocket captured in the spider web, and she told Combuskin to use a Sky Uppercut, which destroys the cage containing the Pokemon, freeing them as they all peacefully fall back into the hands of their trainers, including Pikachu, who falls into Ash's hands, and Squirtle, who falls into May's hands. Much to the horror of James and Meowth, though James still suggested that even though they didn't have the Pokemon anymore, he He and Meowth should just try and make their getaway so they didn't get blasted off, and screamed at Meowth, suggesting that he helped them escape by cutting the spiderweb with his claws. So Meowth was about to oblige, very determined to cut the spiderweb with a very strong Fury Swipes, when suddenly, right as Harley congratulated May on the sky uppercut, and Lillian had showed up, having heard the ruckus outside the Pokemon Center, Squirtle jumped out of May's arms to use an ice beam directly on the Meowth balloon, causing the Meowth balloon to explode, and sending James and Meowth, who were now frozen in an ice block, blasting off. With Team Rocket gone, May just stared at Squirtle confusedly, because she didn't know that Squirtle could use an ice beam. Brock, Max, and Ash were surprised, along with Combuskin, but Ash, Brock, and Max all congratulated May on her Pokemon learning a new attack, with Ash stating that the attack was amazing, and Max stating that the attack, Ice Beam, would probably really help her out in the upcoming contest. Brock then wished May luck in the upcoming contest, and stated his belief that perhaps all the positive treatment she had given Squirtle recently had helped it open up and learn a new move, and it was essentially a reward for May treating her Pokemon so well. Ash, and Brock, and Max then thanked May for saving Pikachu and all the other Pokemon, congratulating her on doing so, although May retorts that it was all Squirtle's doing. So, Ash, Brock, and Max congratulate Squirtle. Although May also realizes that Harley really played a huge part and needed thinking as well, since he was the one who trapped Meowth and James. Harley claimed that he didn't need no thinking, although May doubted this and thanked Harley and Ariados as she and Harley shook hands and wished each other good luck in the upcoming Saffron contest. Lillian looks on, impressed with the sportsmanship. Later that night, in the forest, we then see Team Rocket reunited with Jessie, who had finished her hair-chopping operation. James and Meowth were trying to heal and rub their hurting bones after their last blast-off, while Jessie just looked on confused as to what happened, so Meowth and James revealed that they attempted to capture the other contest Pokemon so that she could win by default, claiming that they almost did, but failed at the last second, like they always seem to. So Jessie was surprised, but touched that Meowth and James wanted her to win so bad, and declared that she and Cacnea could definitely win anyways, even with all of the stiff competition, and even though Jessie now had shorter hair. James and Meowth were glad to see Jessie was confident, despite her best feature, her hair, being severely ruined, although when James and Meowth pointed this out, Jessie got embarrassed, and simply just turned her attention to James's Cacnea. The next morning, Ash and the gang had went to the contest hall so May could finally register, but much to May's surprise, when she talked to the receptionist, she found out that she actually couldn't use her Hoenn Pass in Kanto contests. Not only that, the receptionist apologized, regretfully explaining that the deadline to acquire a new Kanto Pass had been reached, and the deadline to register was 10 a.m., and it was past 10 a.m., even though Harley had said the deadline to register was 11, and that Hoenn contest passes would work. So May was obviously distraught from all this news, and she, Max, May, and Brock all realized that Harley had tricked them again. May was still not convinced that Harley could have lied to her, and told the receptionist that she was told that her Hoenn card would work, and the deadline was 11, not 10, but the receptionist refused to let May register, as she simply said the person that had told May this was mistaken. May was very sad, realizing that Harley lied to her for real, and she fell to the ground, rejected and depressed. Unbeknownst to her, Harley was watching the situation around a corner in the contest hall, and was pleased to believe that he finally had his revenge, as his plan to trick May actually worked. Just then, though, Lillian walked past and greeted Ash and the gang, and asked why May looked so depressed, leading the receptionist to explain that someone had given May false information about the Hoenn Pass and the deadline, leading Lillian to tell the receptionist that it was May who saved all the contestants' Pokemon the previous day, and without May, there wouldn't even be a contest happening today. So Lillian, being the host of the contest and all, officially gave May permission to enter the contest and get a Kanto Pass. May thanked Lillian for this, and the receptionist just claimed that she would tell anyone who asked that she actually got May's registration and pass earlier, but she just forgot to enter it, and she gives May her Kanto contest pass and a new ribbon case for Kanto ribbons. May asks Lillian what she wanted in return for helping her out, although Lillian just states that all May had to do was give her a good performance as a reward. Brock tried to flirt with Lillian and say that he could give her a reward by taking her out to dinner, but Lillian just ignores Brock when Max pulls him away by the ear and walks out of the contest hall, for now, until the contest would start. The episode then ends with Ash, Brock, and Max wishing May luck, and with May holding her new ribbon case, examining it, really excited at her chance to finally get her first Kanto ribbon, while Harley looked on around the corner, angry that his plan was all messed up, but he remained determined to keep May from winning the Saffron ribbon, stating that he would make sure May's ribbon case stayed empty.